Good afternoon and welcome to the first of the CLS webinar series. My name is Rod Mitchell. I'm the Marketing Director at Cycle Law Scotland, and I'm delighted that we've got so many people that have been interested in coming to hear what we have to say. I'm going to be hosting today's seminar, and I have with me Zara Jones. Zara is one of our specialist cycling lawyers. And today's topic that she's going to be talking about is common cycling, collisions, compensation, and civil law. It's a relatively short presentation, but there will be an opportunity at the end for you to ask any question. In fact, if you see at the bottom of your screens, you should have an option for posing a question. And if you want to do that during her presentation, we'll then pick those up at the end of her presentation and hopefully answer them as best we can. We have had 3 questions already posed in advance of this webinar, and we will pick those up as well. So without any ado, look forward to hearing what Zara has to say. Zara, take it away.
Okay, can everyone see the PowerPoint now? Yes, perfect. Well, thank you very much, Rod, for the introduction. Good afternoon, everybody. Just to clarify what Rod said, I'm going to be talking about common cycling collisions. I will be talking about what I do at Cycle Law Scotland and also about the civil law. Just to let everyone know that we are all cyclists ourselves. We know what it's like to be on the road cycling. These are some images that have been taken of us doing some various cycling events. We do charity cycles, and that's also one of our solicitors doing mountain biking enduro as well. And there was a few photographs of myself out cycling in lockdown and earlier this year in the cold as well. So just to clarify, criminal law and civil law are very different. They are separated, and at Cycle Law Scotland, we focus on civil law. So criminal law would focus on if a person is charged, for example, under the Road Traffic Act with careless driving or dangerous driving, and the police would be involved in that. And the burden of proof is beyond reasonable doubt. Whereas civil law, we owe a duty to all road users. There has to be a breach of that duty due to a negligent act, and as a result of that, a person has been injured. And the burden of proof is on the balance of probability, which is a lower standard of proof. It is also for the pursuer, so that would be the person pursuing the action, to prove fault. So to talk about some common cycling incidents. These are very common, for example, a dooring incident, cycling with roundabouts, junctions, and also close passes. So I'll start off by focusing on dooring incidents. Now, the Highway Code provides guidance to cyclists and advice, and in particular, Rule 67 advises cyclists to leave plenty of room when passing vehicles. Now, this photograph relates to a case of mine, which happened in Glasgow, and in particular, Byres Road. And you can see the car door of the blue vehicle that's open. What happened was my client was cycling along Byres Road. As he reached the rear bumper of the blue vehicle, the driver's door opened. And as a result of that, my client, unfortunately, his face actually went through the windscreen of the driver's door, and he sustained quite nasty injuries to his face. Interestingly, the third-party insurers, they denied liability, and their reason for that was that they said that the door had been open for some time and that my client should have seen that and avoided it. As liability was denied, we raised a court action, and as part of that, we carried out investigations, and we spoke with the reporting police officer who attended at the scene. The police officer actually confirmed that the driver had been charged, for opening the door in a dangerous manner, causing injury, and that is an offence under the Road Traffic Act. We provided that information to the insurance company, and they admitted liability, and an offer was put forward which settled the case. Junctions are also very common with cyclists, and again the Highway Code provides guidance, and in particular Rule 72 to 75 warns cyclists to watch out for cars turning across their path and to check when entering a road. Now this is a video of a case of mine that again happened in Glasgow. This was in Bell Street in Glasgow. I will play the video first and then I'll talk through the circumstances. But I would say watch out for the middle, the centre of the video, as that's where my client stops at the junction. And then there will be a white car that comes from the right-hand side. Maybe just play that again because it's so you can see the cyclist. Now what happened here was my client had reached the junction and he was wanting to turn right. And unfortunately the white car cut the corner, and that's what caused the incident and my client to sustain an injury. Thankfully, due to the dash cam footage and also the witnesses that you can see inside of the video, liability was admitted early on, which meant we could focus on my client's recovery, and the claim settled quickly. And what I would say is dash cam footage is very, very valuable in these cases. I will now talk about roundabouts, and again, these are very common, and Highway Code offers advice under Rule 76 to 78 to watch out for vehicles entering the roundabout, leaving the roundabout, and crossing across cyclist paths. Now, another case of mine, this happened in East Lothian. And again, I'll play this video, and the cyclist you can see is wearing a high visibility jacket. The cyclist comes from the left-hand side of the video, and then a red car comes and enters the roundabout. Now, this video is surprising, maybe shocking to some, considering the cyclist had high visibility clothing on and it was an open roundabout. The red car unfortunately did not see the cyclist, and the driver was in fact charged with dangerous driving. Again, due to the dash cam footage, liability was admitted early on, which meant we could focus on my client's recovery, and he was able to secure a good settlement for the claim, and he also received physiotherapy and rehabilitation from the insurance company. Now, we're going to talk a little bit about close passes. This is a video, this was a case my colleague handled in Aberdeen, and I'll play the video and then I'll talk a little bit about close passes. Now, it was due to the close pass that the gust of wind caused by that actually caused our client to fall from his bicycle, sustaining injury. So there was no impact with the vehicle, but because of the negligent act of the driver, we pursued a claim for this. Now, under the Highway Code, Rule 163, it advises drivers to pass cyclists and leave as much room as you would if you were passing another vehicle. Now, the UK police have also undertaken the Pass Close initiative, and that has proven very successful. Now, we deal with insurance companies on a daily basis, and we often get reasons from insurers why perhaps their policyholder collided with our clients being a cyclist. A very common one is the cyclist came out of nowhere. there was low sun, or the cyclist was not wearing a helmet. In particular, the cyclist was not wearing a helmet is a very interesting one, because if they're claiming that they did not see our clients, well, they obviously did if they knew that they weren't wearing a helmet. So it's very interesting to see these excuses that the insurers put forward. Now, I'll talk a little bit about making a claim. We adhere to the protocol, the personal injury compulsory protocol with the insurance company. So we work with them, and the first thing we would do is we'd intimate a claim directly to them. They would then have a period of 21 days to note interest and confirm that they are the insurers. They would then have a period of 12 weeks to investigate liability, and often it can be before this 12-week period. And once the liability is admitted, we would then focus on the value of the claim, which is referred to as quantum. Now, apart from pursuing just a claim for personal injury, we can include with that, if, for example, a person has been off work as a result of their injuries and they've suffered a loss of income, that can also be included. So can if you required help and assistance from a family member, that can also be included. And if, for example, your bicycle has been damaged, you need to replace your cycling helmets, or if your mobile phone, backpack, or cycling jacket, for example, has been damaged, that can also be factored in. Also, if cycling is your main mode of transport, and as a result of your bicycle being damaged, you have to incur taxi costs, for example, going to work or going to medical appointments, that can also be factored in with a claim for personal injury. At Cycle Law Scotland, we work with bicycle retailers across Scotland, and we would contact them and we would ask that they carry out a full assessment of the damaged bicycle and confirm whether it can be repaired, and if so, the cost of that, and if not, a replacement cost and how much that would be. Now, to talk a little bit about the injury process, we would, once a client has made a good recovery, we would request medical records, and then we would instruct a medical expert. The medical expert would produce a medical report, and the medical report would provide the diagnosis and also the prognosis. And it's based on the medical report that we are able to then value a claim for injury. And to do that, we use case law. So we look at previous cases that have gone to court and the awards that the cases have received for injuries similar. We also look at a book which is called the Judicial College Guidelines. And this is a book which sets out ranges of awards for injuries. And this is a picture of the book, and in particular, this is showing knee injuries. What I would say is that everyone is an individual and that we do look at cases on a case-by-case basis. Now, what happens if an incident happens to yourself? What do you do? And I'm just going to show some footage of some cycling incidents. Some of these footages are quite shocking. You can't believe how the driver couldn't see the cyclist. Now, the first thing is recommend reporting an incident to the police. If there's been an injury, you should report it to the police and let the police know that. The police will give you an incident reference number, and they will also, it'd also be really good if you can, if possible, take down the vehicle registration number. This isn't always possible to do, and you can ask the police for that information later on. But if you are able to take it from the scene, that's very useful, because we need the vehicle registration number to then identify the insurance company. I would also say, if possible, if there's anybody who witnesses the incident, if you can take their details, that's also very useful information to have. This is a collision card that we provide, and this sets out what you should do if you are involved in an incident. One thing I would say that's important in this is photographs, very important, but also not many people think about that once you've had the incident, if you can go home and write down a description of what happened and what you saw, that's very useful because you remember it fresh from just experiencing it. This just shows some of our details there. So if you have any questions, if you think you would like some assistance, or if you're not sure, we're happy to provide assistance, and we're happy to take the phone call and let you know if it's something that we could take on at Cycle Law Scotland. This is just to let you know about some of the campaigns that we are involved in at Cycle Law Scotland. This is the Roadshare campaign, and this is the campaign for presumed liability. Now, this was started by our senior partner, Brenda Mitchell, and we are really trying to change the current law from it being a cyclist having to prove that a car driver, for example, was at fault, who is injured and has to deal with the injury at the same time. We're really trying to change the law to reverse that and make it the burden is on the car driver to prove that it wasn't their fault. If you would like more information, there's information on our website, and there's also a petition which you can sign online as well. And this is the I Ride 2 campaign, which we also have started. And this is really, it's the bumper stickers on the back of the car that you can see in the photograph there. And it's really to educate and engage with communities of cycling and also drivers to show that even if you are driving a car, you may be also a cyclist yourself, and that you appreciate the difficulties that cyclists can come across when cycling on the road. Okay. Any questions? I think we had some questions, Rod. I'm happy we can start with those perhaps.
Brilliant. Listen, thank you very much indeed, Zara. That was very interesting. I hope everybody also found it as interesting as I did. Yeah, no, actually, in advance of the webinar here, we've received 3 questions that you can perhaps address. The first one came from Ian, and he asked whether we could actually recommend an insurer or a policy that might help him in case he was potentially going to cause damage or injury on his bicycle himself. What would you say to that?
What I would say is we wouldn't recommend a particular insurance company, but what I would say is often you wouldn't know that you are actually covered by your home and contents insurance. They can cover you for public liability incidents. So I would always check with your policy of insurance and see what cover you have in place before you look to maybe take up a different policy of insurance.
Of course, this doesn't happen very often, does it? I mean, it's about risk assessment and the likelihood of it happening. It's something that people can obviously consider, but it's not something that happens regularly, and we don't find out very often, do we?
No, and you don't have to have a policy of insurance in place either to get on your bicycle and cycle.
Cool. Okay, the second question actually also was related to insurance, but it came from Roger. And Roger was asking about e-bike insurance. I think it was in relation to insuring his e-bike, again, on the road, or potentially for himself in case he was going to have an incident with it. So what's the position on e-bikes?
So with e-bikes, you don't have to have insurance as such to be able to ride it. You don't need to have a license, and you don't need to wear a helmet. So it is just like having a normal bicycle. I have looked into this question, and I found information that you should specify that it is an e-bike to your insurance company.
Okay, so I guess the message here is always talk to your insurance broker or talk to your insurer just to make sure they understand what it is you're trying to insure and ensure that it's covered in the event of a particular incident that might occur.
Yes.
Okay, cool. The third question came from Peter. And Peter was asking that old thorny question about collisions and potholes. I think he was concerned about the state of the roads, which I can understand entirely, having ridden on them recently, for two-wheelers. And he was concerned about what would happen if he went into a pothole, damaged his bike in a pothole, and worst case scenario, if he was to come off his bike and be injured in the course of that particular incident.
Absolutely. What I will say is that with a claim for a road defect, there has to meet criteria that the council would prepare. So it's an intervention level that they would do that. There is often, it really depends on the council area. Figure is 40 millimeters is a measurement that's often used by local authorities. So if it's greater than 40 millimeters, often that can mean that the defect is what's called actionable, and that they would then have a duty to prepare that. We would need to establish that the council failed to, they should have, and they failed to repair the defect, and as a result, an incident has occurred.
Excellent. Thank you very much. While we're still here, conscious of everybody's time, but we've got a wee bit of time left. Some questions have come in online here. I can just read them out, Sarah, you can perhaps answer. So, question came in from Ewan regarding time limits in raising a compensation claim. Is there a time limit before the case becomes time barred?
Yes, so there is 3 years. In Scotland, you have 3 years to make a claim from the date of the accident.
Okay, 3 years. Excellent. Thank you very much. Catherine's asked a question about bringing a civil action against local authority for injury and damage caused by a pothole. So she wasn't aware we were going to bring that up. So I think the answer is obviously being covered by yourself. John asked the question about bumper stickers. John, we can make those available to you if you want to send us a message. We'll get those sent out to you in the post immediately. Kenneth has asked a question regarding collisions with pedestrians. From his experience of cycling in town, pedestrians are the single biggest hazard by far. What would you say to that?
I would say that pedestrians, again, as they can be covered with their home insurance for public liability. So yes, watch out for pedestrians. Often they can be crossing the road with headphones, maybe not looking. So do be careful when you're out cycling.
I think again, it's obviously pedestrians are a hazard, and one should be riding with a view to ensuring one can control one's bike. If a pedestrian was to stand out or walk out in front of them, they are hazards, but one needs to ride sensibly, and on that basis, it's caring for the more vulnerable, I think, is important. One other question's come in from Catherine again, just asking, well, I think she was talking about these civil claims against the local authorities. Have we been successful in claims for pothole damages?
Yes, we have. I have one that I settled start of this year, a successful one, but it really just, it depends on, so you need to find out information. So the first thing we would do is we'd submit a freedom of information request, and we would ask for information about when the last inspection was, how often they are inspected the particular road. We'd also ask if maybe other incidents had occurred there. So we really need information first before we could then be able to advise if there is a claim there and prospects of success.
Okay, thank you very much. Tim's asked a question in terms of prevention is better than a cure in terms of educating drivers. He's saying that we seem to have had little success, I guess this is in Scotland, in getting the police to action webcam footage of close passes, and it's very time consuming to raise an incident. Is there anything that can be done to make it easier for the cyclist and to force the police to take these incidents seriously before there is a death?
I would say, obviously, yes, there is the close pass, and the dash cam footage is very helpful. Obviously, we don't want any deaths from with cyclists. Obviously, a lot of car drivers are cyclists themselves, and I think that's really what the whole scheme is. Really, the close pass initiative is really trying to educate everyone that we are all using the road at once, and we really should take into consideration cyclists, car drivers, and we should really kind of be one community, all taking consideration.
Thank you, Zara. I might mention actually, Tim, from my own perspective, I'm aware of quite a lot of pressure being put on Police Scotland to consider an online portal like they have in many of the other police forces across the UK for uploading close pass footage, or in fact any kind of footage of poor driving behavior, or in fact any kind of poor behavior by road users. That is being considered quite seriously. It's been pushed heavily by Cycling UK Scotland. There's a campaign to try and get them to introduce this. And there are some changes in Police Scotland in terms of their own way of recording what happens at an incident, that they're looking to try and consider implementing uploading footage of webcam and stuff like that to help them as well. So I think it will happen. It always seems to take a bit longer, and we seem to reinvent the wheel quite a lot, but I think there will be some good progress there for everyone's benefit. Okay, I think that's nearly all the questions. Oh, a couple more. Where do we stand if knocked off one's bike by an uninsured driver?
So there's the MIB, the Motor Insurers Bureau. They are an organisation, a government organisation, that they, from everyone's insurance premiums, that is how they are built up. And it really is, you would pursue a claim with the MIB under the uninsured. Also, if it's a hit and run, for example, there would be the untraced drivers agreement, and you would pursue a claim with the MIB. So definitely we can still pursue an action if the person is uninsured or you can't identify them.
If you're interested, Peter, we have a specific webinar on the whole MIB process and our success there for both of those schemes. So look out for that webinar in the coming weeks. A couple more questions and then we really must wrap it up. Zara, there's a question about high visibility clothing. How important is this in any claim?
It is very useful. If for example, a cyclist is wearing high visibility clothing, we can then put that to the insurance company, and for obvious reasons that they're there to be seen. So why could the person possibly have not seen them? So yes, it is useful, and it's also very useful for us to know if you were wearing that, because we can use that to our advantage to the insurance company.
Okay, and final question, how are your services paid for?
So we operate, so it's no win, no fee. So we work on a speculative basis. So what we do at the end of a successful claim is we then deduct our fee from an award that a person would receive.
Thank you. Okay, okay, everybody. I hope you've all enjoyed that particular webinar and it's been useful. I can inform you a couple of things. First of all, this has been recorded, and as will all the other future webinars we've got planned over the next 2 months. They'll all be recorded and they'll be available on our website, the Cycle Law Scotland website, and on our YouTube channel and on our Facebook pages. So if you can't make any of them or you want more information in the future, you can always go there to get it. And of course, we're always happy to give free advice, free half-hour advice to anybody that wishes to talk to us if they have any concerns. Next up, next webinar is on Monday at 6 p.m. Where Thomas Mitchell is going to be delving into looking a bit more depth at the damaged bike assessments and how we interact with insurers to ensure that your bicycle is included as part of your overall claim. We know how important bikes are to cyclists. So I'd just like to thank Zara very much for all of her wisdom and providing that information. And thank you all for attending, and we will see you again hopefully soon. Thank you.
Thank you.